Longsword may be the most popular weapon among most hunters in the Monster Hunter series, but we should never forget about its progenitor, the Greatsword. This weapon has existed in the franchise from its inception, providing a niche to a particular kind of player who craves big damage per hit. Its imposing and mighty appearance has also given it somewhat of an iconic status in the series as well. Although I'm not exactly fond of it, I do admit that there is a certain appeal in seeing these huge numbers appear on my screen. After many hunts with the Greatsword in Monster Hunter World, I do think I'm ready to give my assessment of the weapon, starting with its good parts. The first, biggest and most obvious advantage that the Greatsword has is damage. When properly charged, there is no weapon that can match the sheer damage per hit this weapon can do. So much so that, statistically, this is perhaps the one melee weapon that most of the time achieves the fastest speedrun times, provided that snowmen weren't factored in the equation. Because of this high per hit damage, Greatsword is also relatively low in sharpness consumption when compared to fast hitters like dual blades. Second perk of the weapon is of course the reach. There are times in this franchise where you can very well whiff important hits on accident. Having a weapon with good reach does help avoid incidents like these. Because the main attack of this weapon is purely vertical, you also have less risk of accidentally hitting an unwanted part when you want to target specific parts of a monster, which is nice. Tackling is perhaps something I'd consider to be the third perk of the weapon. Whenever you're in the middle of charging your slashes, you can always press the special attack button to perform a tackle. When you're in this animation, you temporarily possess the effects of Rocksteady Mantle and can now power through attacks, screams, and many other things to maintain a good position on your target. It also allows newcomers of the weapon to lessen the damage they take in case of misplays. Two offensive benefits of Tackle is that it can be utilized to shorten certain animations in order to get to True Charge Slash faster, when one doesn't have slinger ammo to burst with, and it actually does a certain amount of stun buildup. Still, monsters get increased stun thresholds as the game progresses, so it's more of a minor benefit. Fourth advantage that the Greatsword has is that it can block. Even though the Greatsword can tackle, the weapon still extends an extra helping hand to assist those who aren't that good at the game through this feature. Still, on top of it costing the wielder some amount of stamina, it also does reduce sharpness, so one should try to avoid doing this. Fifth advantage of the Greatsword is its Slinger Burst attack. Not only that you can utilize this to force a small opening for your True Charge Slash, provided you equip the right pods. This attack is also the fastest route that the Greatsword has to go into True Charge Slash. As a bonus, Slinger Burst also allows you to do sharper turns mid-combo in case you are off target, since after all, your charged attacks have limited angles. The last advantage that I can think of is that, despite its rather large size and heavy weight, it has a surprisingly decent sheath time. Not only that, it would help the hunter with getting to drink potions faster and perform Superman dives in case of emergencies. This, combined with Frostcraft, does allow the hunter to immediately refill the Frostcraft meter when not attacking. And that's for advantages. Now I'll talk about its drawbacks. The biggest disadvantage of this weapon is that its most powerful hits require a certain level of experience to reliably land, when the monster you're fighting isn't staying still or not fighting back. You can't exactly rotate 180 degrees when you're charging your hits, nor can you move while doing so, like Hammer, while you technically can use the classic critical draw fighting style, which requires less foresight. The amount of damage is nowhere near the amount you could do if you learn to land the True Charge Slash on a rampaging monster. Not only that, your timing must be on point, you also have to be very accurate with your hits as well. Keep this in mind when you want to learn this weapon. Second drawback of the weapon, luckily something I consider minor, is that this weapon has very poor mobility when it is unsheathed. Not only that you walk slowly, you also have worse roll interval comparable to Switch Axe in Sword mode and Charge Blade in Axe mode, so repositioning with your weapon out may take more experience to do properly. Greatsword also doesn't have attacks that cover a decent amount of ground like Switch Axe's Fade and Advancing Morphs, Sword and Shield's Advancing Slash, and others as well. Fortunately, Greatsword does have decent sheath time, which made me consider this a minor disadvantage. Third disadvantage, again a rather minor one, is that it has a poor tenderizing attack. Sure, you tenderize in a single clutch claw combo, but not only that this can drain a decent amount of sharpness, it can also adversely affect features of certain late game builds like Frostcraft. As if to add insult to injury, Greatsword also has one of the more time-consuming tenderizing combos among in-game weapons. And that's what I can say about the Greatsword. It's a weapon that surprisingly has newcomer-friendly features, despite its strikes perhaps being the hardest to properly land in the game. Personally, I can only recommend this weapon to players who actually have the patience to properly learn targeting its slowed strikes and actually memorize a monster's attacks instead of gambling with its charged hits all the time. I hope this video was useful, or at the very least amusing. If it was, do subscribe, and as always, have a great time.